Welcome, welcome. I see everybody piling in. I always get the visualization. It's almost like Black Friday at Walmart or something. Everybody's banging through the doors, hopefully not trampling each other, which is insane to me for a television, but who knows. But everybody coming in. So we will get started per usual at about 12:01 Eastern time, so about three minutes or so. But welcome, welcome. And Phil, maybe if you want, you can go ahead and share your screen, and we'll sort of get that going. They can see our lovely faces on the side, probably better than in full Technicolor, at least with my radio face, but do it that way.
Yep.
Yep, looks great.
Looks good.
Well, and before we get started, I think for those of you who have attended these in the past, I always ask the anxiety-inducing question, that is, I hope you can all see us and see the screen. And so if you can give me, on my team, John's already on the ball, so very good, thank you. He's already raised his hand, so that's all we need. I think there was one maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I was doing some great jokes and all kinds of incredible suggestions, and nobody could hear me or see anything, so it didn't matter. So anyway, in my mind, I was doing all that. But we'll wait another minute or two. Yep, one more minute, we'll wait. Welcome, welcome. So I have got 12:01. We're going to go ahead and get started. We've got a great leader today in Phil Cabetta, and great his team members, Tim and Don, will be going through, so I want to have as much time for them as possible. So this is a bit of a deviation from our typical super geeky, taxi, wonky presentations or subject matter, which is great, I think. And so really wanted to really talk more about and share more about the Chartered Advisor and Philanthropy program. So I've had the great pleasure of being active with that since the early 2000s. I guess Donna was nice enough the other day, I didn't even know when I got the designation, but it looks like it was 2004. I've been on the advisory committee, I think, since 2001, 2002. So this is under the, as I put in the email blurb, this is the sharpening the saw approach about how you can be better, more informed, better tools, better communication, and a better framework for charitable planning if you are a nonprofit advisor or a for-profit professional advisor. Not only has this proven very successful over the last couple decades now, but we got a report from Phil, which I'll share a little bit about more of the current status, about just how fast the designation continues to grow for very good reason, frankly. So I am a huge advocate. I literally will not recommend my mom for anything. That is true, anybody that knows me, but I very much endorse, recommend, and have put a lot of time and attention into this designation. So I do hope it's helpful for you to have an overview. So on the next slide, we'll go through the somewhat of the advertisement, but I will do it quickly and softly and gently. So our firm, Charitable Solutions, as many of you know, is also an odd firm, and so we have existed since 2003 with one sole mission, and right there at the top, we help make charitable gifts happen that otherwise wouldn't, period. And so we've got a team of 16, soon to be 18 at the end of this month, I hope, if we can get 2 more hires. And we specialize in risk management around facilitating these kinds of gifts. So if you sort of go all the way to the right, the Emergency Assistance Fund administration. So very quickly there, what we do is either as a third-party administrator for large, independently managed relief funds for painfully COVID, which we're going through right now, or any other disaster or potentially personal hardship, we can provide those services, design, grant management as a third-party administrator. More specifically, exactly 10 years ago, which is kind of weird. I didn't have hair then either, by the way, but 10 years ago, set up the Emergency Assistance Foundation, and so now we have about 137 team members within that foundation. We're in 10 time zones, which I didn't know there were 10 time zones in the world, and serve now it's just over 11 million employees across 300 different multinational, primarily corporate funds. So we have a lot of activity there. We did 175,000 grants in 2020 for pandemic. 35% of those were international, and the rest were domestic. So lots of activity in that space, unfortunately, last year. Bottom right, professional advisor CE. So CE stuff kind of like this, even though this isn't CE, but do a fair amount of that. I would say maybe 90% of those are virtual. I'm going to Kansas tonight, so we'll see how that goes to do an in-person. But for board, staff, nonprofit, donor speeches, so have maybe 30 or so different speeches that we as a group or I personally deliver there, so do a fair amount of that. Then sort of more of the core work, charitable gift annuity risk management. So spent a lot of time, strangely, last 25 years or so around hopefully understanding the interesting dynamics within gift annuity pools. We have 2 actuaries on staff, do stress testing of pools, and particular expertise around very large gift annuities. One, I think you may have heard the last time we did this session last month, just finished a $38.8 million gift annuity with a charity, and working on one now that's at $18 million. So these coming in much, much larger than historically they ever have, primarily because people want simplicity, they want guaranteed income, and these are very, very large, obviously, contributions that they're turning to the gift annuity. So we spend a lot of time there, and on both of those help with reinsurance design, brokerage placement, et cetera. So anyway, gift annuity risk management. Then we have sort of the virtual currency life insurance appraisals. I'll sort of drop down one more. About 3 months ago, set up a new business service line around Charitable Appraisals, LLC. And so we do, in essence, sort of our new tagline is, if it can be given to charity, we can appraise it. So there you go. So we can see there we do all forms of business interest. We've got 2 business appraisers now on staff. We've got one for oil and gas, one for jewelry, gems, precious metals, and then one for artwork, collectibles, et cetera. So in essence, anything that can be donated that requires a qualified appraiser to do a qualified appraisal. Our particular expertise, we hope, is that we only do charitable appraisals. That's it. And so we get Form 8283 to be sure. So doing that now, too, again, around risk, around substantiation and compliance. So all this sort of falls off that tree. And then sort of on the left side, we have sort of the 2 primary activities around the nonprofits that we work with, and that is non-cash asset risk management. So many of you know anything that's illiquid or complex that a charity, for whatever reason, is unable or unwilling to accept. Don't say no. We say this over and over and over. If it's a good donor with a good asset wanting to do good things, don't say no. That's why we exist, is to help facilitate those specific transactions. You can see there we use the Designation Foundation primarily to do that, but also do some direct consulting on an hourly basis, on a case-by-case basis as well. You can see some of the data there. We are running about 50% ahead this year where we were last year. Last year was our record year. It is crazy what's coming in. So we've done 84 illiquid gifts. It's about 260 million. That's year to date. We should be very, very close to 500 to 550 million this year, a bit over 400 million last year. So again, lots of activity still. Real estate, privately held business interests are what we're seeing. Some cryptocurrency around the edges, and some international assets as well. So lots of activity. You see the average fee, at least last year, we did exactly 100 donations, weirdly round number. Average fee was at 1.6%, and then so we do what we call all the sausage making, and then the other 98.4% is granted out to the charity or charities that the donor wished to give to in the first place. So we're really just an intermediary donor advised fund pass through for those gifts. And the final piece is the National Gift Annuity Foundation. Same construct, different charity. So it is a separate foundation just doing gift annuities. We are, I guess, likely going to register in Hawaii. That's been a pain for me. Like 49 states fine, so we're in that process. We'll see. So maybe next time we can say we're in all 50 states, but we're in everywhere but Hawaii, at least at the moment. And the main thing is, again, if a donor is trying to make a gift of a gift annuity, if it's large or small or in a state perhaps that the charity is not otherwise registered, don't say no. We can then receive that gift. It becomes our asset, our liability, and then 100% of the residuum passed back to the charity or charities the donor was trying to give to in the first place. So you get the theme there. So we're really just an aggregator across risky spaces to be able to help facilitate those gifts back straight to the mission to help make these gifts happen that otherwise wouldn't. So we're now coming up on the largest total gift annuity pool in the country, but definitely the largest independent pool in the country. Now we're up to about 600 contracts and $47 million in assets. So that's us. So let's go quickly to the agenda. So the agenda here, in good shape on time. So Phil is going to be our Sherpa walking us through the agenda today. So what is CAP? The funder's vision and the American College's role as both the content provider and delivery mechanism. And for that, quick history, present status, curriculum cost, delivery, testing. So a number of the people had responded back to me prior to registering for this, sort of asking those things, like, that's on the agenda. So just show up. Those are the big questions. And then what I really have been surprised at how well these cohort group success models, and they really grew quite organically. And it's one of those things to say, I wish we would have thought about that 20 years ago. But the students themselves and the sort of the sponsors and facilitators, in particular geographically, are across affinity groups, have really taken the lead. And it's not like where we have one-offs, it's where we have dozens now of these types of affinity cohort group models. And it's been amazing to sort of watch. And the final thing is sort of what I have been amazed by too, is within one of those models, the Omaha impact study. So with that, I want to introduce Phil. I met Phil when I was 24 years old, cannot believe that. I did have hair then, Phil remembers that too. But known Phil forever, it seems like, so since 1994. And have just been so pleased at his role, really going from the for-profit side with a deep passion around charitable planning there, and the perch that he's been able to both fill and make very successful as sort of the, I almost call it the anchor leg to some extent of the CAP program. There are more legs to go. But that was really been the critical role the last 10 years in particular to make this the designation that it's become. So with that, Phil, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Brian. It's great to do this with you. And we do go back a long way. Like I remember when we were both dreamers with absolutely nothing to show for it whatsoever except frustration. And so it's really interesting that your work has exploded in the last few years, as has CAP. So it's been very gratifying. So I'm the CAP program director. I had a financial planning, estate planning background before I joined the American College about 13 years ago. And this was really a dream for me to do. This was kind of a labor of love, and it was wonderful to have a chance to do it. We do have a CAP team, and Tim Belber is here with us. He's an estate planning attorney by training, also a financial advisor, and he is working on 839, which I'll tell you a little bit more about briefly. Deanne Ewan wasn't able to join us today, but you can see her credentials there. She's doing the tax course, Charitable Strategies. We have Donna Bantaloni, who is here today with us. She's got a for-profit and a nonprofit background, and she's been coordinating a national study group. And Elaine Galesian is our manager who signs people up and administers the study groups. So what is CAP and what's the point of it? Okay. It's Chartered Advisor in Philanthropy. It's a 3-course master's level designation awarded by the American College of Financial Services. It folds into our master's degree. So if you get CAP, you can go on to get a financial planning master's degree. It also folds into the master's degree at the Lilly School of Philanthropy, for those of you who are on that track. This is the vision, and it's a very interesting vision. And I got to the college with this really being my dream. I didn't know it was the funder's vision. I thought it was mine. I thought I was going to have to sneak it in through the back door. I was so pleased when it turned out to be my job description. But here it is, okay? It's to bring nonprofit gift planners. I know many of you on the phone are in that category. That's community foundations, single issue charities, and also the client's advisors together in common purpose to better serve the people that some of us call donors and some of us call clients, but the same people. So we're trying to create a planning team that includes, for a change, the nonprofit gift planner as a critical component. That is the vision of our funder, and it's difficult to achieve, but it's really, really important, because otherwise our donors are whiplashed between the advisor perspective and the fundraiser perspective, and they have to sort it all out for themselves. Beyond that, though, our goal is to uplift philanthropy in particular communities, primarily geographic, and do a world of good for generations to come. And what's beautiful about this, honestly, after having been in financial services for 27 years, this is a pure social filter. You notice I did not say make you wealthy as an advisor. I said do good for clients in the community. It is a social filter, and it attracts the right advisors. And many of you, I think, in the fundraising world have been somewhat frustrated by advisors because they seem to be so financially oriented. That's not really true in the CAP world. For the most part, the CAP people are really interested in giving back. They're at that age and stage, and so are their donors. So these are our funders. Bill and Sally Wallace. He was a head of an insurance company, Home Life, which merged with Phoenix to become Phoenix Home Life back in the day. His wife, Sally. And what they're doing there, this is in Naples, Florida. They are looking through an album of thank you notes from Dallas. Dallas was our first study group, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And at the end of it, they all got together and they wrote thank you notes to Bill and Sal, and I delivered it. And they were so pleased to see this thing going over. It really met and exceeded any dream they had had. And it was so gratifying to sit with them as they did that. So it was founded about 2000 by Bill and Sally. They gave $1.5 million in stages. They didn't have the whole $1.5 million. They started out with their beach house, their family beach house. They put in a CRT. It started with that. I met their grandchild who saw a picture of the beach house over my desk because it reminds me of why I'm doing this. You know, this is real money. It's not some rich man's money. And he said, gosh, that reminds me and my sister, we used to fish for sunfish off that dock. And I realized, you know, what a sacrifice Bill and Sally made to make this a reality. The first person to hold the chair was Elton Brooks. Now, some of you may recognize that name. He founded Renaissance, which is where many of us got our start in philanthropic planning back in the day. So he was the first Wallace chair. And then many of you, I hope, will recognize the name H.K. McGlawn, was the second CAP chair. He was really, you know, not in addition to being a JD, he was also a master of divinity and a pulpit preacher, and an eloquent one. So for him, this was crossing the divide between legal work on the one hand and divinity on the other, setting a great example for all of us who follow. And then Richard Fox was the next. He was a JDLM, kind of a famous name in tax planning, as a loose leaf tax service. I started in 2009, and in that year, there were about 60 graduates, people who completed. And we've grown significantly. Conservatively, 320 or more expected this year. And the last year, the last couple of years, we just about doubled. We have about 2,500 total designations awarded to date. And I think what has happened is it's almost all word of mouth. We do not have a strong marketing operation. It's all word of mouth. And I think it's becoming kind of an industry standard. I think we're beginning to get network effects where employers are looking for it. If you're trying to get a different kind of a job, it's a good credential to have. So if you're in the for-profit sector, trying to move to the nonprofit, it is a bridge. It's intentionally a bridge. And if you're the other way around, you want to go from nonprofit to for-profit, it works that way too. And we've had some people make a round trip. You know, the grass looked greener until they got the other side and then they came back. But I'm really proud of that. Recently, we have a new donor, Chris Blunt, and his wife, Gretchen Nickel, have given $1 million to fund a professorship now held by Deanne Ewan. And what she's doing is she's focusing on donor education, helping high capacity donors to move from success to significance. Overall, I would say we're at about a 50-50 mix. Nonprofits have been coming on strong. It used to be almost all advisors with a sprinkling of nonprofits. I think this year we actually surpassed 50-50 with nonprofits being 60-40, but it's about half and half. And we like it that way. The advisor professions are pretty much across the board: financial planners, family office staff, attorneys, CPAs, investment advisors, trust company people, insurance professionals, independent philanthropic advisors. And the nonprofits, we have single issue charities, plan giving people, major gift people. We have executive directors, and community foundations have been probably our biggest taker as a percentage of the total. So I think like 750 community foundations. And we have had a very good representation, particularly from the bigger ones that are a little bit more sophisticated, that realize the importance of working with advisors. And if you are from a community foundation, I'll say there is truly one group that will do well financially from CAP, and it's the community foundations, because the advisors come to realize that they need you. Okay, they will leave knowing they need you and why, and they will use you as their philanthropic arm, in effect. We've also had a lot of representation from national gift funds and a lot from nonprofit fundraisers who realize the importance of working with advisors to get larger gifts to their nonprofit, the kind of gift that, Brian works on too, again, in that same kind of mix, business owners in transition kind of people, non-cash assets. I think it's a great and growing opportunity we're looking at in CAP. I'm not talking about selling CAP, I'm talking about using it. As you well know, there are trillions passing from the boomers. A lot of that is tied up in closely held businesses, land, the kinds of things that Brian works on. It requires more than an ask. You're not going to tap a closely held business by making an ask. You have to do planning around it. So who's going to unlock these business assets, these more complex gifts? Who's going to align them with impact? It's going to take a team. And it's important to say that nonprofit gift planners have to be on that team, or the money is going to just end up in charitable tools with nowhere to go. And obviously that is a critique of the charitable tools today. Too often they're set up for things like tax savings without really thinking about the impact. So as a team, we can bring the money in through the tools to the nonprofit or direct to the nonprofit. Now, here's how the program works. You're hearing me lecture, and you get to ask questions. I actually record the lectures. People, when they call me on the phone, often say, well, there's a long pause when I stop talking because I think I'm just going to talk for an hour. But the lectures are recorded. You can listen to them at your leisure. There are readings on our learning management system. You can read those at your leisure. There are textbooks that are mailed. And probably if you do everything that's required, it's 5 hours per assignment times 10 assignments. You can make shortcuts. Some topics are more important to you than others. So there are ways to kind of do it more quickly if you want to. There are self-tests at the end of every assignment so that you can check your comprehension. And then you go to the exam center, because some of you exam centers or some of you take your securities exams, and you get a 100-question objective final exam at the exam center. And you're well prepared to do it. The pass rate is over 85%. We're not trying to make this unbearably difficult. We're trying to make it helpful and useful to you. In addition, in many cities, and also to some degree nationally, we have study groups. Now, what is a study group? I'll tell you more about it as we go along. But a study group is where you get together with peers, face-to-face or online, across the disciplines, to kick it around. Not to regurgitate the material, to memorize information. It's not about flashcards. It's about applications, learning to work better together to accomplish good things in the community. And those relations, as you well know at this stage of your career, yes, it's what you know, but it's also who you know. In a good CAP study group, you are connected with the best people to know in your community for philanthropic planning. And it's a working group, not just a learning group. This is the pricing, for-profit versus nonprofit. If you compare this to graduate degrees, graduate courses, a place like Lilly, our entire 3 courses are less than 1 course from a place like the Lilly School at Indiana. The curriculum has 3 courses, 839, 849, 859. 839 is planning for impact in the context of family wealth. That's what advisors do. That's how they see the world. My client has money, they have a family. How can I work with them to facilitate the transfer of their money, but also their values, their beliefs, their way of life? And I submit to you that is realistically not possible unless you take into account how they are rooted in their community through nonprofits. If you really think about it, it's going to come back to their schools, their religious organizations, the cultural organizations they belong to, if we're going to accomplish really planning for impact for a family. The second course is what you'd expect from the American College, tax and tools, charitable tax and tools, the foundations and the donor advised funds and the CRTs and the CLTs, all of that we need both as advisors and also as fundraisers. Okay. 859 is the same world seen through the eyes of a nonprofit gift planner, i.e. a fundraiser. So how do they bring the money into the organization? What's the role of the board? What's different major gifts, planned gifts, all that kind of, what is stewardship? What can you do to succeed? What can you do to get sued? Impact investing is also in that course. Okay, so that's looking at the world from the nonprofit perspective. So we have a chance to bridge from the world of for-profits to the world of nonprofits via the charitable tools in the middle. And I hope we end up with a shared perspective of how important each other's role is and why we need each other and why the donor needs us. Now, camp study groups arose spontaneously. This was not, Bill Wallace took me aside soon after I was hired at a country club. And he said, Phil, I have a dream. I visualize all around the country, there are going to be these groups of camps getting together to study together. Maybe an insurance person or maybe an investment advisor has put it together in their conference room. Maybe they put in some scholarship money and they're socializing this knowledge and they're going on to do great things. They say, well, it's a great vision, Bill. There's no way I can make that happen. I just sit here tapping out the courses. But it arose spontaneously around 2010 in Dallas. Then it moved to Omaha and it began to spread around the country. Omaha is still going. Dallas is still going. Some of these places have over 100, 125, 150 who've gone through it in groups of 10. The reason it lasts is because it's so much fun and it works so well. Okay. People will say, Phil, these are great courses. Thank you very much. My study group was unbelievable. And the people they brought into the study group, the donors who came in to talk about us, that was one of the really the high points of my education. So it's the local study groups, I think, that really made this. Now, you don't have to take it that way. 60% of the people don't, but it certainly has been powerful. Students complete at a higher rate. They rate the study group as their best part of the experience. And bonds are formed that lead to teaming on complex cases, and that's the payoff. And I'd have to say, in some cities, camps have evolved into a true community practice. They're constantly picking up the phone and calling each other about specific donors and clients to get things moving. This will just give you an idea. I mean, I just love these pictures because I remember being in these groups, visiting and so forth. So these are like friends and very high quality people. This is Omaha, one of the many groups they've had. West Palm Beach, Columbus, Ohio. It's worked so well that we've begun to put together national cohorts to make it available to those who don't have a local group. So this is Deanna Ewan, Shady LM Cap, and she's organized 4 national cohorts of advisors of color, and there are several now in process. So it's an affinity group. This is the Dallas study group. This is the advisors of color on Zoom. And we're looking to put together other affinity groups. If you think of a group you belong to that you think you'd like to study with and go through, we'd be interested in helping you to do that. So Jewish advisors and staff at Jewish federations is one we've got going. It's in the organizational phase. Other faith traditions would be wonderful to have other faith traditions represented. Conservatives, LGBTQ+, all of these and others we would like to do so that you're learning with people with whom you have an affinity and you'd like to do good things together with them. We've also done them for companies, Fidelity Charitable, Thrivent, National Financial Partners, Foundation Source. And I'm going to turn it now over to Tim and Donna. We're going to talk about their experience in doing these national cohorts. And first will be Tim, and I'll have you hear him. He can tell you a little bit more about who he is, and then I'll flip to the next slide.
Thanks, Phil. Oh, hey, Phil, before I jump in, there's a couple of questions that have come up in the chat.
Sure.
And one of them is, does each individual course involve 10 assignments? And what is the length of the total program? Is it all within 1 year?
Yes. Okay. Each one is 10 plus or minus one or two. There are 10 content delivery assignments usually, and then one review. And then there's an optional case study in many of them. So you can think of it as a semester. It's designed to be completed in one calendar quarter. And if you did all three together, it'd be 3 calendar quarters. You'd be well done. You'd be done in well under a year, 9 months. Now, if you take off tax season and things like that, it could be more like a year.
Great. And then there's another question. I don't know if this is in your wheelhouse or not, but someone's asking about all the designations that are involved in the charitable or the nonprofit sector, the certified fundraising executive, the certified specialist in planned giving, the fellow in charitable estate planning. They all tout their attributes. Do you have any insight as to why one program might be more beneficial than the other?
Well, my feeling honestly is education is a good thing. And my goal is to light one more candle. And I wouldn't want to say we're better than anybody else, but I think it's really important to continue your education. I think we're unique in focusing on equally the for-profit and the nonprofit sector. And I think we're unique in emphasizing teamwork across our sectors. And I think we're unique in the study group concept.
One more, is there a time limit in which the program must be completed?
I think it's something like 5 years.
So it's generous.
Yeah, it's very generous.
Okay, well, thanks. I thought we should jump on those questions while they were still fresh in people's minds. Well, as Phil said, my name is Tim Belber. I'm a generational wealth consultant for families who are concerned about the impact that their accumulated financial wealth is going to have on their children, grandchildren, and sometimes several generations below that. I've been, as I say, wandering around the financial services landscape since 1978. And 10 years ago, my hair was a different color. And I work with a very limited practice. I'm an attorney, but I don't practice, but I do spend a lot of time helping devise and construct legal systems that support what the family really wants to see happen with not only the preservation, but also the deployment of their financial capital among their family and the causes and groups that they really care about. And I've been facilitating the National Study Group, which was to me a really interesting experience. I was making some notes as Phil was talking on some other things that jumped up at me. But I have three big observations on what I heard from our cohort as to what they felt was really valuable. Now, our cohort, interesting enough, we only had 2 financial advisors, we had 2 philanthropic advisors, and everybody else worked in one way or another for some form of nonprofit, ranging from Habitat to Humanity to Catholic charities, down through various community foundations, some large universities. So we had a really interesting mix of nonprofit professionals as well as a few independent advisors. So I learned an awful lot from what their world was like, because it's a bit removed from my world. One of the first things is this idea of a family going on a philanthropic journey. As an advisor, we tend to jump to solutions. Someone will say, well, I want to get some organized family philanthropy. And if I happen to be a tax attorney, I'm probably going to say, well, let's look at a private family foundation. If I happen to be more of maybe someone who's affiliated with, and I'm not picking anybody, but Fidelity or Schwab, I'll just say, well, we have a great donor advised fund options. Families don't really function that way. For a family, it's let's start thinking about what we want philanthropy to mean to our family, not just worrying about how we're going to structure, but what we want it to mean to our family. And a number of the students in our cohorts had big aha moments when they started thinking about the conversations that they could be having with their donors to help them incorporate meaningful philanthropy into their family economic situation without rushing into any of the strategies. A lot of this comes out, as Phil mentioned, in 839, before you get into 849, which is strategy heavy, and 859, which focuses pretty deeply on what goes on inside of the nonprofit sector. Another big aha moment for a lot of our people in our cohort was this whole idea of personalized philanthropy. They all loved having Steve Myers, who literally wrote the book on personalized philanthropy, come and speak to the group about some of his unique constructs around things like doing a philanthropic mortgage to fund an endowed chair at a university, all around the idea of designing something that's completely custom to the individual donor, but gets the charity what it needs, but also gives the donor an opportunity to be a more impactful donor. And then another one of the big ahas is this whole idea that multi-generational philanthropy is really a two-way street for the family. And this is just my observation, if you take away the phrase, who are we going to give our money away to, and change it with, what would we like to impact with our charitable contributions this year? And you let family members express what they care about and why they care about it, and get to have an allocation of your impact contributions for that year. The family members learn so much about each other during that process. And for the first time, maybe they actually feel empowered and knowing that they're doing something beyond themselves, and they're not just standing in the shadows of mom and dad and how they do their philanthropy, or sitting at a table where they're honoring the family, but they're really honoring mom and dad. This is where you can get some real power of benefits that flows directly back into the family. I've been a big advocate of this for several years, and it really gladdens my heart to see others pick up on this idea as part of the CAP program. So I think CAP has got the power to change the conversations and change the way families view their work with, whether it's a nonprofit professional or some sort of an independent advisor, whether financial or philanthropic. So I think it's unique among all the programs that I've been around in the way too many years I've been in the industry. Got a couple more questions, Phil.
Okay.
John Jensen says, this suggests that it would be best to complete all 3 courses in a relatively compact time period.
You know, I think real life intervenes. I think you've got so much going on in your life that'll be the predominant factor. But I do think it's one arc. I think one thing I'm really, really proud of, I think of the first assignment leading to the second, every single assignment is there for a reason, like dominoes. We're trying to get the dominoes to fall one by one. So ultimately, we hope you'll hold it all in mind at once and not see this as 3 compartmentalized courses. So in that sense, yes, I think it would be best, to move right along briskly if your life permits it. It doesn't always.
We have another question about, is the course appropriate for nonprofit staff with very limited, less than 1 year on the ground plan giving experience?
I would say, I have tried really, really hard to visualize myself taking this as I was when I left college teaching English, and joined the financial services world. I really try to not use terms that aren't defined. It really is meant to be stair-stepping up from what we can all understand to higher and higher insights. So I think the answer is yes, but I do think there's another issue. Do they have access to client relationships or donor relationships that justify this level of expertise? If they're not in front of donors and clients who are capable of giving bigger gifts and have more complex situations, it might be, I won't say overkill, but it might not be the right thing for them at this moment if they need basic skill training and basic knowledge in what they do every day. So I would say it's a way to graduate from what you do every day to a higher level of performance with higher capacity donors. Does that make sense? I hope that's a good explanation.
Yeah, I think that does. So now I'm going to flip it back to you, Phil.
Okay.
Oh, wait, one more. Are there CA expectations to maintain the CAP designation?
Yes, every couple of years you've got to, I think it's 30 credits every year, and anything you're getting for other designations counts. In other words, this is not another bunch of hours on top of you doing as an attorney, a CPA, CFRE, any of those conferences you're going to, any of the local meetings would count. It's self-reported. So if you think it counts, we think it counts, unless it's something absurd. But if you're getting C credit elsewhere, you self-report. And every 2 years, you need 1 hour of ethics. So.
Okay, and we had someone ask about if there was a comprehensive program exam, but there has been a response up there that each one of the 3 courses has its own exam.
Right. This is not like CFP. We do think of it comprehensively, but you're tested course by course. So I think it's a lot easier for you. I think it makes it's a more humane way to do it.
Okay, I think that's it for the moment.
Okay, well, next up we have Donna Bentaloni. And why don't you say a few words about who you are in your career, and then they can see where your observations are coming from.
Thank you, Phil. I'm delighted to have a moment to share a little bit of my philanthropic experience, which started on the for-profit side. And thank you for recognizing King Miglon today as part of the history of CAP. Literally speaking, I was identified by King Miglon when he was a trust manager for Merrill Lynch Trust Company. He hired me and has been a factor as a mentor, a friend, and a colleague over many years. Sadly, he's passed away, but his legacy lives on through CAP, as he was one of the very beginning thought leaders and who inspired me in the work I've done. Yes, he hired me at Merrill Lynch Trust Company. I had also worked for Wells Fargo previous to that, and I give them credit for introducing me to philanthropy within the financial services sector. And lastly, I worked also with Mellon nationally to work with philanthropy and advisors across the country. So I've had that for-profit experience, mostly with clients and nonprofits as clients, as well as endowments and other charitable strategies for clients, which was a great training ground for me to evolve in my quest to find what really matters to Donna in using those skills. And it brought me to the work of the nonprofit sector as a director of gift planning, since much of the work under King and our team at Merrill Lynch Trust Company was working directly in the field with advisors and the trust officers to identify charitable giving strategies and to have the conversations that we all have grown accustomed to regarding what is important to our donors and our clients and how to inspire philanthropy for themselves and for the family members. So I led 2 gift planning programs, both for healthcare, one at Lucille Packard at Stanford University, the Children's Hospital, as well as California Pacific Medical Center in San Francisco. I spent 30 years there and had the opportunity to work with some of the best donors and clients using the skills that I had developed. But really, I felt that it was a joy to do gift planning and have continued beyond that work, leaving the West and now residing on the East Coast, where I'm originally from, to follow, I guess I would say, my own philanthropic desire to learn more and to be coached by Phil and DNUN to join CAP, to do the CAP myself. I'm a recent graduate in April of this year, and I'm very proud to be so. After so many years, you would have thought I would have had it completed by now, since King hired me in 1997. But let's just say I was doing the good work and realized it's time to continue my learning. And with COVID, I actually had the opportunity to sit still for once in my career and have the time dedicated to my learning. I'm very grateful to stay connected, and I actually feel honored to be here today along with Phil and Tim, who are such thought leaders in this CAP program. I'm leading a national cohort of study group, and I am telling you it's been an exciting experience to listen to our students that are really almost 60-40% represented in the nonprofit and for-profit sectors. I have the chance to really utilize this information. And as you can see in my slide right now, I want to touch on the fact that, you know, in the beginning, the CAP programs were mostly advisors. When I asked my own advisors in this cohort why they were here and participating in study group, I loved the answers that I heard. And primarily they felt, almost every one of them replied, I want to be the best that I can be for my clients. The advisors know that philanthropy is an important ingredient in meeting what really matters to our clients between family goals, philanthropic goals, as well as their financial goals. In recent years, as Phil highlighted, the enrollment on the nonprofit has surged. And in 2020, 40% of the students came from the nonprofit sector. And this year we reached over 63%. I'm learning from the nonprofit sector as well of study group participants. These students represent a wide range. We have community foundation representatives. We have people in the arts, as well as healthcare, as well as a number of other sectors. And their quest is to learn how to utilize gift planning in a meaningful way for their clients and donors within the organization and staff, how to collaborate along major annual and planned giving by understanding the philanthropic learning curve for each of their donors and the expression of how to really motivate and guide their donors into a philanthropic experience in the nonprofit. My favorite thing, Phil, we can look at the next slide, is really also listening to the students as they discuss the why, what brought them to CAP, and their personal journey in philanthropy and their careers. During the process of the study groups, I've had a chance to find out what is really working for them in the current role and how they are really investing this time and energy to develop areas that they feel they could be even better in. And the CAP program gives individuals at all levels the ability to really assess where they are in their ability to relate to their clients and donors, whether they're on the for-profit side or the not-for-profit. What seems to really work is also, I've been blessed to have a community of experts in the field, the thought leaders that helped me along the way, Brian Klontz being one, Phil Cabetta, Tim, and others that we bring to speak to our students to share their expertise. And these students really latch on because they are taking a moment to consider, how do I apply the information I've learned both through the lectures, through the materials, and the reading materials are extremely important, as well as what I'm learning for the experts in the field so that I can take this information back to my role. They start to assimilate this information, collaborate amongst each other. I feel that some of them have become friends during this group process. I see them having coaches and mentors amongst each other because my goal is really as a facilitator. I'm not the teacher, I'm not the professor. However, having gone through CAP has made me acutely aware of what we need to discuss and bring it to the real, right? So we're learning the information that's so critical to our CAP process and covering as much information as possible during the courses. But then how do we apply it in everyday realistic, whether you're on the for-profit side as a wealth advisor or insurance professional, or you are a director of gift planning or major gift officer or even executive director of programs. How do we utilize this information so that we can do the very best for our donors, achieving their personal philanthropic objectives, as well as our institutions? How do we create performance metrics that are meaningful as well as useful in this environment? And I think through the study groups, we're having these conversations where we kind of roll up our sleeves, look at the information we've been presented, listen carefully to the experts. And these students ask amazing questions. It's conversational. It's everything from the gift strategies to not the technical side, but we talk about the why. And I think along with CAP, I myself have had a great appreciation of the information to kind of fill in the gaps in my own professional development, to think about how I can mentor other students. And most important, the reason I took on CAP in this study group is truly at this part of my career, being currently a philanthropic consultant working with nonprofits. I am a member or a colleague of 14 other consultants with Heaton Smith Group today, and using my skills in gift planning as well as being an advisor to really help clients identify what's lacking in their own gift planning programs and other meaningful conversations in philanthropy with clients and donors. Today, it's important that our students really see the joy. Because through gift planning, for example, in my life and in my career, we work with donors and advisors that provide transformational gift experience for institutions and their communities. But we too, as the catalyst or as a facilitator of those conversations, are transformed in the process. And sometimes, as I've talked with Phil about, I even considered myself as one of the trusted advisors for the donors I've served, and feel it's an honor to have that experience. So I think through study groups and through the whole CAP experience, we are honored and privileged to listen to what's going on out in the communities right now. It's current, it's diverse, and really highlighting how we can all do the best in the role we play at the right time and with our donors. So that's my perspective, Phil. I hope I've given.
No, it's been wonderful. It's wonderful, because of you've come across the sectors, and you really have your own life has bridged those worlds. And it's, the idea of being a trusted advisor from the nonprofit seat at the table, I think, is very, very true when you're talking about values and where you want to have impact. But very often fundraisers aren't treated that way. They don't see themselves that way, or their management doesn't treat them that way.
Hey, Phil, there's one question here on the study groups.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, if someone chooses to stretch out the completion of the program,
Mm-hmm.
would they continue participating in the 1.5 hour study group sessions every 2 weeks throughout?
Right. Well, that's a good question. So let me just kind of explain so you visualize this. Okay. I record the lectures, you listen to the lectures, you do the readings, you do the self-test, you go to the exam center. You can do that over any period of time, like up to 5 years. So if you decide that, let's say something happens in your life, you have to drop out of the study group, and you can continue to self-study. So the study group is an optional overlay on top of it. We hope you'll stay with it because your contribution is so important. We think you get so much more out of it, but you're not in lockstep with it.
Right. And the study groups also tend to start at 1 and end at 10, 11, or 12, right, and then start over again. So it really is designed to help carry somebody through, and each course in about a 10-week segment.
Right. We do find that people who take the study groups tend to complete more, and they tend to do better. And I think some of it is just frankly peer pressure. It helps to have a study buddy, so to speak, or some accountability. But it is also flexible. And if you do miss a study group, ideally you don't, but they're usually recorded. If they're on Zoom, they're usually recorded, so you can kind of dip back in that way too. Okay. Well, how does this work in a community? We're so proud of Omaha. I know Omaha's not the only city with this level of success, but it's the only one where the study group moderator took the trouble to document it. It's not easy. Getting results from financial professionals is very difficult because of all the confidentiality issues, right? You have to be able to trust the person you're talking to, even if the information is anonymous. But the study group facilitator, Mark Weber, JD, he's a fabulous high integrity guy, and he was able to get data right really almost down to the dollar, although it didn't get all of it because some of the gifts are so big, the people giving him the information, I can't tell you about my gifts, the gifts I worked on, because they were so large, only a handful of people could have done them. I don't want to be able to guess. So these results understate what happened, but visualize this, okay? The first year there were 10 caps. Second year there were 10 more. Third year, fourth year, fifth year. Eventually there were 50. And in the fifth year, they looked back. Some had only been doing it for years, some had been doing it for 5 years, and said to these 50 caps, the advisors, how much philanthropy did you touch since you took the courses? Okay. What they were able to document was 1.4 billion. Now, a lot of that obviously is mostly expectancies. These are wills and trusts and bequests and CRT remainder interests and life insurance gifts. But I think what it shows you is the amount of money that's passing almost under the radar in every community you're a part of. There are a handful of advisors who are touching a significant amount of wealth passing from generation to generation. If we can influence that vast river that's flowing underneath across the desks of these attorneys and CPAs and insurance people, we can make a really and truly an amazing difference in our community simply by doing what's right for those donors, helping them do what's in their heart. So you're talking about you're being able to be part of a group which could make literally $1 billion or $2 billion difference in your community. And that's just over 5 years. They've been going on now 5 more years. If they were to go back and look back, we'd be into the multi-billions. And this is realistic. And those of you who work with significant wealth know it's realistic. You know this is the kind of stuff going through your shop every day, only now it's more illuminated, more enlightened. And I think also want to say there's a cross-check on this to the Omaha Community Foundation. What they did, and I'd recommend you do if you're a community foundation, they put a flag in their database when they get referrals, where it came from, okay? What they find is that most of their business comes from advisors. Like 85% of their business comes from advisors. And of that 85%, after 5 years, with only 50 caps who had been trained, over half of their advisor business was cap business. The gifts were twice as large and they closed twice as easily because the donor was so much better informed. So I think that's why we've had so much uptake among community foundations. Word is getting around that it's good for business as well as good for the community and good for the donors. So your success too, CAP helps you in your current role, whether you advise clients or work with high capacity donors, whether you're working on the for-profit, nonprofit side, it'll help you in your current role, but it can also help you change sectors or move up within your sector. And that can be interesting. We're also finding that increasingly caps in leadership positions, the caps are getting promoted into heads of nonprofit units. That's happening all across the country. And they're looking for fellow caps to hire. Now, I don't advertise this much because it's usually the employer who's paying the bill. And I don't want to say, as soon as you get your cap, you can get a better job. But there will be recruiters calling, because it is it allows you to do work that could not otherwise be done, or document that you can do it.
Phil, in the last month, there have been 2 job postings on LinkedIn for senior national positions of client philanthropic advisors, and they specifically said CAP preferred.
There's no doubt. It's very, very gratifying for the standpoint of providing credentials to see it take on, because the whole idea of a credential is to allow the public to recognize a good one without having to know you in depth. That's the whole point. It's like having a certification that says you have been certified to hit a certain standard. It's now being accepted as such, and I find extremely gratifying. And many of these people who do get promoted to become caps then require their units to take caps. So this is a nice way of saying that you're either, if you don't have it, it makes it look like you're missing something. And I've even had some people express resentment about that. So anyway, I think it will help you in your career and make you more mobile. If you're interested, you can join at any time. You can take it self-study. You can start next week if you wanted to. You can also, if you wish, try to organize a local group. We'd recommend, ideally, you at least have one study buddy across the disciplines, but you can do more than that. You can organize a group. We can help you to do that. Or you could join a national group like the ones that Tim and Donna have been teaching. We will have another one kicking off in January, and it will fill up. So it'd be good if you could express interest soon. If you'd like more information, this is Elaine Galician's contact information. She's our coordinator, so she could tell you more about it and walk you through the registration process. And I think that's basically it. So we can take any more questions, or if there's anybody who has a comment based on their having taken CAP on the, I noticed there's some CAP supporters in the audience.
So we have one question about the cost. Is the program fee of $3,000 due all at the same time, or can it be split up in $1,000 per class?
No, well, it's a short answer is it is due at one time. The long answer is you can buy it per course, but it's significantly more expensive.
Well, one comment. First, thank you to Phil and Tim and Donna for sharing their insights sort of going through. One comment for anybody that knows me knows I am cheaper than anybody on this call. I think we got still a lot of people on the call. I'm still cheaper. And so right now, at least I'm paying for my 2 staff to actually go through the program in terms of their time and everything else sort of on the clock, if you will. It's that important to me to, A, make sure that they're well-rounded to their training, but B, one thing, and I really appreciate Phil bringing up the credential as it relates to sort of the employment side. I'll sort of talk about the other thing. I'd sent him an email, I don't know when it was, I said, CAP's finally made it, because I was looking for a cryptocurrency support within Coinbase. And so I typed in sort of like charitable person Coinbase because I was having some issues there. And it pops up, and the person who leads that charitable practice is a CAP. And I think it was the next day I was working on some other complex case group out of Seattle, and the attorney was a CAP. And it just creates this, fraternity, sorority, I don't care what you want to call it, this commonality of perspective, of philosophy, of holistic, of personalized philanthropy that Tim mentioned that Dr. Stephen Myers has really built out through his career, that I'll be blunt, for the first 10 years, that wasn't happening at all. And in the last 3 months, it's like happening, like popcorn everywhere in a wonderful way. And it just creates a common language and a common experience as part of the overall program. So what we always say, too, when I talked about in the first part of the call, if we have a good donor, good asset, when we do good things, none of that happens without saying the right thing in the right way at the right time through an appropriate process, meeting them where they are, both from the heart, passion, the technical side, all congealing into bouillabaisse, whatever you want to call it, into this wonderful stew. And what I love about CAP, I'll kind of be blunt too, is you'll have sort of an attorney go through or more of a technician going through, and they're going, wow, the nonprofit sort of side of this, I had no idea what that ecosystem was. I heard about these terms, but now I have a perspective and an understanding about what those are. And vice versa, some of the nonprofit professionals going through like, oh, that stuff we just know all the time. But now this technical stuff, that is sort of our, I won't call it a blind spot, but our opportunity to improve, to create the holistic vision and holistic relationship that advisors that are high capacity, that Phil mentioned more and more, expect/demand that now from their advisors. They want the team, and they want the members of the team to have those various perspectives, can speak that language. So just a little quick sort of mini endorsement here at the end. That's why I wanted my two-step, like to go through this, to engage, because I think it's critical that certainly the cases that we work on, there is that perspective. But we don't work on any of our cases unless somebody's been able to sort of, quote unquote, hook the fish and bring them to the boat. We can fillet them up, but if nobody's fishing or knows what boat to get or where to go, CAP gives you sort of that whole continuum that you're able to feel confident and comfortable going through that process. So with that, any other questions that have popped up? I think we've got maybe about 1 minute left, and I think it looks good. Well, here's the bottom line, a couple of quick housekeeping notes. So do not typically send out the PowerPoints as I put in the chat. We will be sending out a free link for this whole video. You can watch it 87 times if you want, or 88. Don't know why you would, but you could. Also, we'll take all of the Q&A here, and then we'll combine that with next week's. If you found this helpful and other peers or other contacts, definitely let them know about next week's session, same time next Tuesday. And then so we'll send out to all of those who have registered also the free book. I always joke it's the gluten sugar-free 440-page book on non-cash assets funded by a CAP donor for the CAP program. So I'll be sending that out as well. So lots of free stuff. But I do hope this is helpful. This is very different. I'd love some feedback from what we typically do on these monthly sessions. They're usually super, technical or esoteric. But I just thought it would be such a good time to sort of take a bigger step back and say we couldn't do any of these things without both the CAPs or people with that perspective to really be able to, again, get back to sort of sharpening the saw, so to speak. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you again, Phil and Donna and Tim, and look forward to meeting you all in your own journeys through your career. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.